for the analytics and data. My name is Dan Valamis. I'm on the board of Analytics and Data Oracle User Community. And we'll be talking very soon here about our today's topic. We have a few intro slides just to let you know a little bit about what we are as an organization, and then we'll get to our main topic, our main presenters in just a moment here. Let a few people flood in. It takes a little while for the Zoom stuff to get going and everybody to be able to join and be able to see the slides. So welcome everybody. Again, for those that are just joining, my name is Dan Valamis. I'm on the board of the Analytics and Data Oracle User Community. And I want to welcome you to today's TechCast on Oracle Application Express, a Swiss Army knife story for your analytics. I'm joined today by Lucas Hirschegger and Simon Collins from RittmanMead. If you're not aware, RittmanMead was one of the sponsors of our latest conference, Analytics and Data Summit, just took place back in March out at Oracle headquarters. And we're thrilled to have Simon and Lucas present for us today from RittmanMead and share some of their background in using Application Express. So welcome, guys. We have a few slides. If you can just advance to the next slide. So we asked them to put together some helpful links. We'll put those resources in the chat so you can click on them. So there's some information on Oracle Application Express, some resources on that. I won't try and read through those links. Also, the sample application you can look at as well. And of course, information on RittmanMead. We're thrilled to have them working with us today on today's webcast. I will mention also, if you have questions, if you could put them in the Q&A widget down on the bottom, you should be able to see a Q&A panel. We will handle those if we have time, and I'll ask the questions as we go through. Everybody's on mute. I should mention that we are recording today's session, so if you have colleagues that you especially want to be able to hear this information, you'll be able to share it afterwards. It'll be on our website at AnDOUC.org. So you'll find that in terms of some of the resources. Go ahead and go on the next slide. This is in a series of TechCasts. We've been doing these for 3 years, even before COVID time. And we have, over 100 of these TechCasts out on our YouTube library. You can get them also on AnDOUC.org. You see that link on the bottom. And you'll see them at AnDOUC.org/TechCasts. We have some upcoming TechCasts as well. I'll go ahead and plug those. One is actually from my brother, Tim. He'll be talking about thinking visually with Oracle Analytics. That's the next one coming up on in 2 weeks. On May 18th, we'll have the sign up for that later on today. It was kind of a last minute substitution. Then we have also one coming up on June 29th, Financial Crime and Compliance, Transforming Text Documents to Graphs. And then we have another one that's being added as well that's just being finalized. You'll find all of that up on AnDOUC/TechCasts. And I should mention to you, we are looking for more presenters later on in the summer, and you can submit your topic to share on that. There's a button to click on that'll allow you to submit an abstract, and we have a committee that selects those. So we'd love to have you share your story as well. Go on to the next slide. We also have merchandise. If you want to get something with the AnDOUC or the Analytics and Data Summit logo on it, you can get our color changing mug, our notebook, or luggage tags in a phone case. Take a look at, there's a link up on AnDOUC.org for a store link, and you can get that as well. Go ahead and go on the next slide. We are a community, so just be aware this presentation, we have RittmanMead as guests panelists, but this is run by a user community separate from Oracle. We are passionate about analytics and data and would love to connect up with you. You can see that's where our website is. We also have a Slack workspace open to anybody to join. You see the link on there, and you'll have it in chat as well to join up with us. There are people pose questions to us, and we're thrilled to have that as part. We also have a TechCast channel, YouTube channel, where all of the TechCasts appear. That link is also off of our homepage with the YouTube logo, and then you can connect to us in various social media groups as well. You can see those links on that. So with that, let me, that's our background. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A channel, or general topics, you can say hello in chat. If you'd like, we'll put links on there as well. But with that, let me go ahead and welcome Lucas. You know, Lucas, I remember from the rehearsals, and I see you have it in the background on your camera, the Lego creations that I'm guessing you made, or you have kids. Welcome, that was superb to see that. And Simon, I know when we were talking about this, when we had the rehearsal, the thing that stuck out in my head was that you asked for hobbies. You said drink lots of red wine. So I think that's fantastic. So
you've picked the worst one, Dan. There was lots of positive hobbies, but
there were other things as well. You're right.
You've forgotten about them.
Well, but that's what stuck. So Lucas, let me turn it over to you. Welcome, guys. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, I am Lucas from RittmanMead, and this is our agenda today. So I will be talking a bit about us, talking a bit about Oracle Apex. I will try to describe some of the business problems that we have encountered over the years when dealing with analytics and data warehouses and things. And then Simon will quickly show you what Apex can do for you in terms of solving some real problems. So RittmanMead is a globally recognized open data and analytics consultancy company from the UK. We are in the market as of 2007, and we operate globally. We have more than 50 employees, and we are an Oracle partner. So that's it from us. So I will quickly run you through what Oracle Apex is. So Apex, or Oracle Application Express, for short Apex, is a low-code application platform that is on top of the database, of the Oracle database. It allows you to quickly build and deploy secure web applications. It's really very flexible, and I always say that anything that can be done as a web application can be done in Apex, so there's no restrictions. Right? It's not just like a visual builder kind of thing, but it's a tool that gives you a lot of connectors and things that allows you to build any enterprise application, really. A lot of things are supported natively in Apex, and if not the way, it's not a declarative way, then you can do it yourself, implementing any custom library or code that you have in place. So it's really, really flexible. So what Apex allows you to develop and deploy quickly web desktop applications, and the Oracle team is doing a great effort on putting progressive web applications as a high priority in the latest version. That's really doing well. Basically, the normal use case for Apex is that allows you to visualize and maintain data on your database. So you can build a quickly interface to allow your user to update, insert, or delete data from your tables, which is very useful or very needed in any case. So in theory, you don't need to know anything about any developer language or any development language like PHP or .NET or whatever. That's the theory, so you don't need to know anything. The reality is you might need some SQL or PL/SQL. It's really nice if you know some HTML or CSS, and it's great if you know some JavaScript. So that will bring your application to the next level. From the commercial point of view, what is Apex? Apex is a fully supported feature of the database, so there's no extra cost, it's free of charge. It comes with all the versions of the database and all the editions, Express Edition, Enterprise, Standard, and it's also included in the new always free tier. So if you are on OCI, if you are in a free tier or not, you can use it in autonomous flavors. So ADW or ATP, Apex is just one click away from that. It's not limited to the cloud, it's also on-prem. You can install it on your local machine or on your local servers. It's no restrictions in that, it's really easy to install. And it's also in other clouds providers like Amazon. So you have Amazon RDS, there is Apex as well there. So some distinguishing characteristics of Apex. I really like the fact that Apex applications are built using another Apex application, right? So the application builder is the software that you use to create applications, and that's just a web application itself. So you're using Apex to create more Apex applications. There is no compilation, no code generated. An Apex application is just a bunch of rows in tables in the metadata schema in the database. So basically what the Apex engine will do is just run some PL/SQL code that will generate the HTML code for you. I will be delivered to the client. So in the next slide, taking a look at the architecture of Apex, if you have a browser, which is the client you need to access an application, you have the mid-tier, which is Oracle REST data services. That's the entry point for your client to get into the database, to run some PL/SQL code, and to get delivered the HTML code as a result of your call. So it's really simple architecture on that. So basically, to recap, Oracle Apex is a Swiss Army knife on top of your data that allows you to solve any business problems in a quick, easy, and secure way. That's my definition of Apex, if you want. So hopefully you know, or you have heard about Apex and you know how great it is. What I will try to define in the next slide is the business problems that we have encountered when dealing with data. So we have defined three things or three scenarios or ways of having problems. And one of those is the loading of data. So I have been a system administrator in my previous roles, and I know how difficult it is to get all the data in one place from many different clients or sources in many different formats. So it's really annoying to have to combine all these pieces of a puzzle coming together to be processed overnight, right? So what we have delivered to many clients in the past years is an entry point for your data. So an application that allows users or machines to upload data into your system so it can be processed overnight. And Simon will go through that in the live preview. Another critical point in your data journey is the validation of data. So it happens many times to me that the user call and say there is no data because the file was late, or because the file was it was a bad file with an extra comma, an extra double quote, or something bad in the file. So you need to go fix the file, be reactive, and running the load plan again, which means you are loading probably data during the working hours. People are complaining because everything is slow. Well, that was my case in a small company with not a lot of service and a lot of databases. So Simon will also display a nice solution of what Apex allows you to do in terms of data validation or being proactive while fixing data, right? So after you upload the data, you can validate that the data is good or almost good and can be ready for being processed overnight. And the last scenario that we have prepared is the sharing of data. It's a common scenario as well, that you have some data in your database and you need to feed that data into other systems. That's usually a machine-to-machine communication. So it's not a web interface. You probably use OAC or OAS to share your data in report, like a report. In this case, we're talking about JSON strings. There's a way of sharing data with other system in a secure way. And Apex, or better say, Oracle REST Data Services is in charge of that. Simon will display you how that works in reality. So I think that was from me. So I will just pass the ball to Simon.
Thank you. Good pass. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon or evening or morning, I guess, depending on where you are. In a minute, I'm going to be sharing my screen and we will hop into Apex. And I'm going to show you around maybe a bit of the developer, but mostly a little sample application that we've, or actually mostly a lot of Oracle have put together. But I've just got a couple of slides first that are going to kind of set the scene for, what I'm going to show. I mean, the first one of those is that this demo that I'm about to show is aimed for people without much experience or knowledge of Apex. It's going to show you quite a high level view of a subset of the functionality that the product has. The second thing I wanted to say is that all the pages or the functionality we show can be built very quickly. I've said about 30 minutes. Some of them can be built quicker than that. So we're going to show stuff about file uploads, RESTful services, and there's obviously lots of technology stacks that you can build that functionality on. But one of the great things about Apex is you can do it really, really quickly. And what we might do, if I'm feeling brave enough, part of this demo is actually to kind of stop it and go, well, hey, I'm showing you a part of an Apex page here, and I'm going to help you go in and do a little bit of development and actually sort of augment that page just to show you how quickly you can sort of produce functionality within the product. And sort of lastly, in kind of setting the scene, anyone who after this demo or this talk is still interested, in Apex, I really suggest you go to apex.oracle.com. It's free to sign up. You can get your own workspace. You can download lots of different apps with sample code, and you can actually, it's really easy to sort of dig in and sort of like get to sort of reasonably quickly understand, how that functionality is put together. So, next slide, please. And so very quickly, in terms of the demo topics we're going to cover today, I'd like to start off just quickly covering authentication and authorization. What I mean by sort of authentication is, how you're identified into the application, and authorization when you actually log in, what your user can actually see. So often when we produce Apex applications, person A logs in, they see a completely different or very different set of menu structures or product than a different person logging in. So we'll cover that at the start. And then we'll go on to something very simple. We will upload a simple data file into the database and via Apex, and we'll show, how that table data with some Apex components can be quickly modified and sort of deleted. We'll then go on to something slightly maybe more interesting, complicated, which is actually downloading some data via a RESTful service. And we'll look at massaging and doing some real-time parsing of that data. And then maybe, as I said, sort of like after that, if I'm feeling brave, we will go in and do some quick development in Apex itself and put some charts on the screen. And the last thing I'm going to show today is that in Apex itself is some data validation. So we're going to quickly load a few lines of a file into Apex, and we're going to get Apex to examine some database and business rules so that we can quickly and clearly show a user any problems that it's found with that data. As I said, either with like a database rule, say, a primary key being broken, or also some custom business rules that we've put in to say, hey, well, actually the data can get into that table, but the business doesn't actually like it. And we will show how we can do some validation there and clean up those errors. And lastly, then we'll move on to ORDS, which is the way that Oracle has exposing parts of the database to the outside world through RESTful services, how we can actually use those RESTful services to push data into the database, and also how we can actually configure a RESTful service that a consumer can get data out of the database. So without that, I'm hoping now that I can be able to share my screen and stop Lucas's PowerPoint.
Yeah, go ahead.
And move on to my screen. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Right. So firstly, what we have here is actually not a user application. I'm logged into the Apex Builder. So I'm wearing my, if I should have bought a hat, I'm now actually wearing my development hat. So I'm logged into the Apex Builder interface where I design and customize the applications. And you can see here that in my workspace, I've got several apps that, and these are actually mostly demo apps from Oracle that, and you can see, there's loads of applications that if you want to play around with, you can, from charting to REST services to reporting. And the one that we're going to be looking at today specifically is around data loading. As I said, this is a a reasonably standard app, but I've customized it a bit to make hopefully a bit more interesting and show a few more things that were in the standard application. So I'm sat here now as a developer, but I'm going to run that app sort of, you know, so we're going to be logging in as a user would see the application. So the first thing I've done, the first thing we're going to talk about was authentication and authorization. So as you can see now, I've been challenged here in authentication to actually sort of like log in via Google. Now, with Apex, there's lots of different authentication schemes you can use. The reason I've used Google is it's quite nice, and why not? And secondly, we're seeing lots of clients these days more and more kind of push off authentication to identifying providers like Facebook, Google, Ping, IDCS, for example. And the other reason I've done it is because this application, which is in the link in one of the first slides that you've got, you know, if you want to actually have a look and play around with some of the functionality I've shown you, you can actually log into this app on my workspace, you know, and play around. So I'm going to click, I'm going to say, that's okay, Google. I'm going to let this Oracle application see my profile, which is essentially my email address and my name and nothing more. And now we're actually logged into the application itself. So this is a fairly typical sort of like front screen of an Apex application. You've got a nav bar at the top. You can see that my name here has been grabbed by Apex from the Google authentication. It's got various, you can drop downs, and on the left-hand side, we have, you know, a navigation menu, which shows me, you know, in this app, all the pages that have been developed, which we'll bounce to in a second. And just before we go on that, the last thing I want to say is about authorization. I said in one of my last slides that when someone logs into Apex, they can have a very different experience than someone else logging into the same application. And, you know, rather than me log out and log in as a different user, I'm kind of going to simulate that now by switching to a restricted user, which will give somebody, you know, a completely different look and feel. They'll get a different page, they'll get a different menu structure, you know, and often, you know, you'll get people who are read-only users, or they'll get a subset of functionality. And that's all done sort of natively in Apex through what's called authorization schemes. Okay, so, but for the rest of this, I'm going to switch back to admin because I'm going to, I need it to show all the menu options that I would like to show. So on the first bit, I've got some data loading. Now, when I was going to show you lots of different stuff, actually, at the beginning, we were going to go through background loads of large files and CSV loads and a lot of, you know, complicated files where you do transformations on them. But when we went through the rehearsal, Dan told me that it was a bit repetitive and boring. So, and I think he was right. So I'm going to simplify this all.
You say it was boring, Simon.
Pardon?
You said it was just, it took too much time.
Yeah, well, you know, I think you were just slightly polite. But no, you had a good point. And I think, right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump straight to this one here, which is a standard page on the sample app called multiple file type load. And on this page, what Apex is telling me is it says it can happily and natively and quite easily collect different types of files. It can collect text files, CSV files, Excel files, XML files, JSON files, and even zip files, you know, that it will then unpack as long as underneath their CSV text, etc. And it's saying you'll hear all the things you might want to try on this page. And don't worry, I'm not going to show you them all. I'm just going to pick one. And I'm going to do that in a second. But the important thing to know on this page, in a very basic file upload in Apex, then what the system wants and what is defined in coding underneath is a data loading definition. And that data loading definition has mapped what is actually in the file to whatever kind of database table that you want to actually sort of upload it into. Now, that data loading definition could be really simple if the file maps, you know, absolutely to the table, or it could be more complicated in terms of you might need to do lookups to foreign keys or transformations, etc. And I'm not going to, we haven't got time to go into detail, but it is a very sort of like flexible and easy way of uploading data, as long as you're fairly sure that every time that you want to upload a file, it's going to have a consistent format. Okay, so I'm going to start off just by choosing this CSV file. And we'll open it up. And you can see that this data is not in the database yet, but Apex is actually giving me a nice quick preview. And we'll go on to it's doing this through a parsing module, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. It's given me a nice preview of the file that's found in the CSV. But I know this data's fine and clean, so I'll hit load data. Okay, quite dull, quite boring. It's the normal emp table, but we'll start off simple. And it says, great, it's loading 14 rows into the database. Lovely. Now, one of the good things about Apex is it's got quite a lot of nice widgets that allow you, or components, that's the proper name from not widgets, components, to massage and edit data. And I've put one of them on the screen, which is the interactive grid. Okay, so now I've got that data in the database. Me as a user can come in here and go, well, actually, maybe I want to play around with it. Maybe Smith, its manager, has changed. So I'll have to go into edit mode. Okay, maybe Ward, he's not in sales anymore. Okay, maybe, Miller has disappeared. He's gone, so let's delete them. Okay, all good. Maybe, I want to add a new row, and I'll put me in the database. Put my job role. I haven't got Lucas as my manager. Okay, but as I said, you can see here we've got nice things like drop downs or date display pickers, etc. And I will put my salary in. Okay, and we'll press save. And
I like your salary, Simon.
Pardon?
We can agree on that. I like your salary.
Yeah. That's next month, maybe. So there's some quite nice, nice components that allow you to easily and on the fly edit data. We won't go in. There's lots of different things you can do in formatting, pivoting, highlighting. You can see here I've actually just quickly put a highlight on the manager, and on these grids as well. There's quite easy way of charting, and these are just done on the fly for the user, not set up by the developer. And I've just set up a quick chart which is just showing the salary per department. Okay, so that one, brief introduction, nice easy way, file upload, and being able to take that data and edit it on the screen. Okay, the next thing I want to move on to is maybe slightly more interesting, or well, anything's more interesting than the employee table. Okay, and that is collecting data via a web service. Now, what this page is going to do is, again, sort of with a native Apex call, call out and go and get a CSV file from the network. And this CSV file is something which is close to my heart, which is a whole load of football or soccer data, depending on where you're from the English Premier League. So this bit of code here is going to call out, it's going to grab that CSV file, it's going to parse it into memory through the Apex Data Parser, and it's going to present it to me on screen where I can actually have a look at it and play around with it, and maybe, if I'm interested, save it to the database. So I'm just going to go out there and call that web service. And usually this happens really quickly, but whenever I demo it, it knows like the universe is watching, and it takes about like 10 seconds. So, and it's doing it to me now. There we go. It's usually a lot quicker than that. So you can see here on the left-hand side, I've got the raw data. So this is what this CSV file I've just got from the network contains. It contains basically rows of data of, all the games played in the Premier League this season, loads of stats about, the full-time score, the result, the referee, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But I'm gonna, at the moment, this is not anywhere in the database. It's just, well, not in a table. It's now presently stored sort of like in a temporary collection in Apex where I can look at it, examine it, and maybe massage it, or and then maybe do something with it. Okay, so you can see on the fly, it's already discovered a bunch of information about the columns for me, which may be actually just nice as a developer, if not a front-end user. And because this is actually a collection in the system. It doesn't mean to say that I can't run SQL around it. So I've taken that collection, which is now in memory in Apex, and I've run a predefined SQL query around it. And I've said, okay, well, I will now actually run a query in a way that will produce the Premier League table, which is, before I've even saved anything. And I can see, looking at it, depressingly, my team here is still inexplicably in 5th place. But I do know this is, correct. So I will say, maybe we're happy with it. I now actually want to take that data and save it into a table in the database. And so I will click on that little merge data button, and that's running a quick PL SQL process that's running around the collection and placing it in the table. So at this point, I kind of like, this is the front end stuff, and I'm just going to pause, and I'm going to go back to what I said in one of my slides before, which is to say, maybe we can just open up the developer front end and show maybe how quickly we can actually augment this page that a user might see to build a chart. So at the moment, we've got a little placeholder for a chart, but you can see there's nothing there. But I'm going to click this button at the bottom, which tells me I'm going to edit this page. A normal user wouldn't see this developer bar. It's just because I'm logged into the developer interface. Okay, and we're going to produce I will show the actual Oracle Apex development process for the page. Now, it looks very complicated, and believe me, it's not. But this is actually where that page and the coding has been designed to produce the page you've just seen. It's got the components here. So this is where you're laying out where the buttons are. It's where you're putting the processes to sort of maybe load the data or save the data. They're all done on this page here. But as I said, we haven't got time to get it in too much detail. What I'm going to do is actually just quickly show you how you can add a chart to the page. So you can see here, these are the components where the tabs that you've just seen. And this is the placeholder that I've got here for the chart. So I'm going to quickly create a subregion. And on the subregion type, here are the components or widgets, I like to say, that we can pick from. And I'm going to pick quickly charts. I'm going to give it a quick title, my chart. Okay, and the attributes, it's here. There's lots and lots and lots of Oracle charts you can choose from, but I'm going to happily stick with bar. And I'm going to say, and give it what the actual title is, average goals. Oh, I can't spell. Okay. Okay, so what else do we have to do? Well, obviously, it kind of needs to know what kind of data that you're going to present in the chart. So I'm going to put a little SQL query here that I've prepared earlier. And all this is saying is go to the data that you've just uploaded to the database. And I want you to kind of select the average home goal scored per home team. Okay, so group by home team and ordered by average goals. So quite simple. And then we're going to pick the label, which is the x-axis, okay, and the y-axis, which is the average goal scored per game. And then the last thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to give the axis title and the y-axis a title. And then I'm going to press save. So there's me as a developer. I've come in, I've taken this page, and I've just added a little more functionality.
Maybe worth mentioning that Oracle Apex is using Oracle Jets. Maybe you're familiar with OAC or OAS.
Lucas.
You are. I mean, you probably recognize the chart that the look and feel is the same as in OAS or OAC. So yeah, Oracle also Apex is using the same library that OAS uses.
Thank you, Lucas. Good point. I forgot about that. So there we go. So there we have it. Liverpool are obviously third if we did it by there, which is a lot better. Unfortunately, that's not how the league works. But I hope that gives you a slight impression sort of on how kind of reasonably quickly and easily that you can start sort of like putting functionality onto a page. So I've just got one more thing to show you actually in this Apex application itself, which we talked about before, which was the data validation. Okay, and just going to clear this data now. And on this last page here, I'm going to simply take a very simple file, and I'm going to ask when I'm loading it, the page to actually examine, or the database to examine that page. And if it finds any problem with the data it loads, to log it into a standard error table. And then I'm going to present that error table to the user. And the user will be given information about why that row's failed, and then maybe the opportunity to fix on the fly that data, and then actually load it into the table itself. So as I said, the data itself again is going back to the boringly, I'm afraid, to the employee table. It's got 4 rows, and we're going to now just attempt to load those into the database. So I'm going to click there, and as you can see, it's saying, hooray, one row loaded successfully, but unfortunately 3 rows failed. And you can see here at the bottom, the top one, sorry, is the record that's happily gone into the employees table, and the bottom one is showing me the error log, where it's given me information about why that didn't go in there. And you can see, let's look at the first one. It's telling me there's a basic standard Oracle database error. You've tried to put a job name in, which is far too large. I can only take 10. But the bottom ones are showing me slightly something more interesting, which is on the load, I put a bespoke business function into there to say, please don't load anything into the table if the salary is over $2,000 or pounds or whatever it is. Maybe it's Bitcoins. That would be maybe worth something. Okay. So, but it now gives the user the chance to go in and go, okay, well, maybe actually I could stop now and report that, and we won't go any further. But on a lot of the clients that we do this kind of work for, we will build things like that where they'll load thousands and thousands and thousands of rows of data, and we will say, well, hey, actually these 3 have failed. Would you like to fix them on the fly? And then you don't have to worry about starting the process again. So we can go here, and we can change that and retry the record, and you can see now that's got in there. And maybe then I can go, okay, well, this one. Okay, and then finally, maybe if I do this, okay, then again, on these interactive grids within Apex, you can put validations, and that's saying, hey, again, sorry, can't do that. Your salary is too high. Okay, so we'll amend it and retry. And there we happily have the records in the database. So again, it was just to try a simple kind of way to say how you can actually present data loading to a user, and allow them to look at the data, examine the data, and potentially just fix the data with useful information to it. So as I said, we haven't got a huge amount of time. So those were the things that I wanted to show you in Apex, and I've got one more thing to show you, which is on the RESTful services. So we'll now actually go back away from the application, and we'll go into the developer itself. And I will go into SQL Workshop, okay, and I will hit the part of the Apex builder that looks after the RESTful services. So, as we explained, at the beginning, then, the ORDS sort of module, which again, you don't actually have to use Apex to use, is a way that allows you to expose your database to the rest of the world in a safe and secure way, via RESTful services. Now, the first caveat I'm going to say with this demo is I have not secured any of the endpoints that I'm going to talk about. And obviously in the real world, that might be fine. But ORDS does have the ability for you to actually put privileges, etc., on endpoints, so that people might have to use anything from OAuth 2 to basic authentication to allow you to hit that endpoint. These are completely open to the public, which is fine because I'm on Oracle, and it's not in our own RittmanMead databases. But I'm just going to talk here simply about a couple of endpoints that we've set up. The first one here is a post, which is going to, and I will demo these afterwards, but this endpoint is simply a way for someone to do, instead of when I was getting that Premiership League data from a GET request, it's kind of doing it the other way around. I'm exposing an endpoint to say, hey, you can post this endpoint and you can load that data straight into my database. So we've got that endpoint set up, the source is PL SQL, and there is just this little piece of PL SQL here that it says, hey, you know, you're going to load a file and I'm going to get it. I'm going to use the same parser that I used when I showed you Apex, and I'm going to insert it into the table. And then that last one is a get command, which allows any consumer to actually get that data from our database. So it's an endpoint with, you know, a bind variable at the end, which is using a very simple ORDS collection query, which I've written here, simple query, which will return the data in a JSON format. Obviously, this can get more complicated. You can write your own PL SQL routines to return the JSON in any particular way or format you want. But I've just done a super simple one. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to hop into a Postman window, and I'm going to show.
Sorry, Simon, to interrupt
Yeah.
you. Maybe a quick note on the post bit. So for those with a little experience with system administration, so you probably know an FTP server might exist in your organization, and you depend on other organizations uploading data to your FTP. This is a great example of how you can replace that deprecated system or old technology, if you want, or not so nice technology with a REST endpoint. So basically, you have a web service listening to a request. You can have third-party companies pushing data into your system in a secure way without relying on an FTP server, for instance, right? So it's really very flexible. You can do anything you want. Yeah, in the case of in this example, we are pushing the data and passing the data and saving to the database directly, but you can just might decide to push the blob file into a table and handle from there, right? So it's really flexible.
Or a staging table or anything. Yes, thank you, Lucas. So okay, so we're first of all we're going to take this first example. So you can see this is a post to that endpoint, and the only thing that I'm going to do, and obviously this wouldn't be done by hand in the real world. You know, if you are having stuff posting into your database, it would, you know, it usually would be from server to server, and you know, not necessarily a CSV file, but more commonly probably a JSON file. But you know, but I'm just trying to keep the sort of the demo consistent. So we've got that file here. I'll open it up and I'll send that binary file there out, and it's going, hooray! I've gone through, I've found it, I've parsed it, and it's given me a very simple, you know, JSON block back saying, well, I've, you know, records loaded 314. And the last thing I'll do is use that get endpoint. Again, you know, we can with a particular, as I said, bind variable at the end. So this point, I'll say I want Liverpool's results. I'll click that, and it's given me, you know, a natively constructed JSON, you know, set of data back. You know, I could change that to much as I hate them, Everton, and send that across, and I will get, you know, a set of results, you know, a set of data back from there. So, I mean, I think obviously, you know, I think the time is up, and I think hopefully, I think I've just covered in a very simple way, you know, the topics that we set out to present. So, I think I'm going to probably stop that demo there, and I guess if you've got time, maybe open it for questions.
Thank you, Simon. This was great. Appreciate you guys going through all of that. I think you packed a lot of information into that presentation. Stayed on time. That's great. Just an example, and I will mention for people, if you see the Q&A widget down at the bottom of the screen, if you hover over the bottom of the Zoom window, you should see Q&A pop up. I know that at least one person asked a question before. Lucas, anything you want to address in terms of that? I saw you typed an answer directly to them, but anything to bring up on that?
No, I think I got a confirmation that the answer was okay. So, but
Yep.
so if you have any further question, you know where to find us. So feel free to contact us. We are also in the Apex World Slack community. We are going to be part of the AnDOUC community as well, so you can contact us there.
Good.
Yeah.
I would also mention that one question that came in, maybe a bit of a testament to, hey, the community is hungry for more, guys. A lot of people sign up for this, and one is, hi everyone, could you please dedicate a session on how to install Apex locally on Windows or Oracle Linux 9 with ORDS, then configure the OCI's transaction processing database on OCI. So there you go. There's a request for a webcast already. If you can put that in the abstract system, we'll look at accepting that, because we know at least one person wants that. We also got a demo on installation of Apex on Windows would be great. Another person agrees. So I think that could be very helpful. Another question I'll pose to you, people are putting them in as we go. How does Apex work with ADW? It's interesting. I'm going to add to this, if you don't mind me piggyback on this. I'm familiar with using the ADW tools, the data actions in there. And if you could tell us a little bit about how, or maybe how does Apex work with ADW?
Yeah, so in many autonomous flavor, ATP or ADW, Apex is there by default. So you are just one click away. So it's installed. You just need to run it. Well, you can log in into the internal workspace, is the internal application that will allow you to create workspace that allows you to create applications. Usually the default username is admin and the admin database password. So you can start from there. But again, maybe there will be no time for that, but feel free to contact me or anyone from the team by email or whatever, and we can do a quick session and show you how it works. No problem. Okay.
Sounds like good topics for more TechCasts. Another question came in. Hi, is it possible to integrate Neo4j.s visualization into Oracle Apex and other JS frameworks like React.js?
I'm not. Yeah, so I'm not very familiar with Neo.js. I guess it's a visualization tool. I will assume it's similar to Oracle Jets or D3 charts or all of these charts things. So basically any library that is JavaScript library can be integrated in Apex, because you just need to, it's just a web document, right? So, or Apex has also a great community, so there's a lot of plugins around. So it might be worth checking if the Neo4j.s library has been already implemented by a community member. And regarding React.js, if I'm not mistaken, React.js is like a framework for building web applications. Again, I will guess it is possible. I have no experience with that. But I think Oracle is using his own library or framework for that. I might need to check on it. I'm not sure. I'm really not a JavaScript person.
Yeah. Well, we have some links in the chat on there for joining our community at AnDOUC.org. We have a Slack workspace where people talk about these types of things. We'd love to have any of you in the audience join us, and especially Simon and Lucas, you guys join us over there and carry on the conversation. With that, I'm going to start closing today's webcast. I will remind people that we did record this, and so if you have colleagues that, or you missed something and want to see it again, you can replay the recording. We make that available. You should be able to just register for the webcast again, and it should make the recording available to you via Zoom, or we'll have it once we edit it down. We will make it upload to the YouTube channel. Also, a quick plug, if you keep an eye on AnDOUC.org, we are planning our next year's A&D Summit, Analytics and Data Summit, take place next year, next spring. We'll be opening up registration soon. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we look forward to you in future webcasts.